you are gonna put those insane amount of hours into it because you're building something that you want to be big and you're building it from scratch. So if you have different levels of ambitions, it's gonna be super hard to be a nice co-founding team. So we also sold some to girls as like long t-shirt dresses, kind of helped us get rid of the stock. If you just hire people and I have to give some of the responsibility away, and they haven't shown that they can do it yet, that can also really bring you into trouble.
This is the Growing Forward podcast with Mick and Trav.
In this episode, we welcome Christoffer Bak, one of the founders of the Danish clothing brand Shaping New Tomorrow.
That's right, Shaping New Tomorrow is one of the biggest and fastest growing clothing brands in Denmark today. This is an episode you don't want to miss. Welcome back to another episode. We're here today with Christoffer Bak, one of the founders of Shaping New Tomorrow, an epic clothing brand that actually Mikkel and I are dressed head to toe in today. One of our favorite brands. Company that's grown from a local scale up to a big international success. Welcome to the show, Christoffer.
Thank you, Travis.
Yes, nice to have you with us today. And actually, Mikkel is wearing one of the OG shirts from way back in the day. Mick, what are you wearing right now?
Yeah, I think actually personally Christoffer sold me this one, and he had like a black marble on, and he was like, you gotta have a white one. Then when we go in and we go to the clubs, we'll be black and white. And I remember it so well. And I've been a true supporter on the brand since almost the inception. And I remember it as the first time that I tried the perfect pants. It was like, holy shit, this is a new world. I don't think for the last 8 years that I've had a pair of denim on that haven't been in Shaping New Tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's been amazing.
Great. That's great. And I think this shirt that you are wearing today also illustrates pretty cool the evolution of Shaping New Tomorrow, because it looks different.
Yeah, exactly.
We were experimenting a lot in the beginning, and I do believe that you have to do that in the beginning. Especially if you start early and don't really know what you're doing.
Exactly. Like every entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But maybe a great place to start. Christoffer, if you could kick us off, just give us a couple of bullet points of who you are, what is Shaping New Tomorrow, and we'll just get into it.
Yeah, my name is Christoffer, and thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Great to be here. My role today is Chief Innovation Officer, and I don't think it's the classic Chief Innovation Officer role, because I also have leadership responsibility for the product department and our retail department. But it is a role that allows me to holistically work with innovation across Shaping New Tomorrow.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So you're wearing a lot of hats then?
I'm wearing a lot of hats, Oh, you confused me. I was like, no hat today. I was still caught up in like the old Shaping New Tomorrow clothes. That was a lot of hats. I wear a lot of hats, and I'm involved in a lot of things, and in general, really curious about how we as a company can keep innovating, which I think is it's a great mindset to always think about how can we become even better.
Yeah.
Shape a new tomorrow, you might say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the name says it all.
Yeah.
How do you, what does innovation look like in a clothing brand? Because maybe typically people might think innovation, Tesla, SpaceX, blah, blah, blah. How do you innovate clothing, something that's been around almost as long as people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's important that you don't always take innovation to this like super high level. Innovation is basically just doing things different and better. We innovate when it comes to clothes. And in that regard, it's a lot of seeing what people want, understanding customers' needs, and then trying to develop different products that can see to that. Like the whole idea of Shaping New Tomorrow came from our own frustration of wearing like the classic old stiff jeans, biking to school, and then hating it. And the first thing when we came home was basically to change to jogging pants. So we thought, why not try to combine these two things? And this is how the perfect pants was born. And that's always the mentality we've had to innovating within clothes. Like really, first of all, seeing, okay, is there any needs that we need fulfilled? And then we try to develop that. But it's also really by talking to customers. In the beginning, we had this perfect setup where I was making the products and I was also selling the products, so you always got all the feedback directly and could implement that into
you had your own iteration loop.
Yeah, exactly. So later on, scaling the company, I'm not that much in the store anymore. I still try to be there like on a regular basis, but obviously I'm not there in all our stores. It's not physically possible.
No.
But I have created different loops that allows me to get this feedback, because I do believe that understanding your customers is like the first step for all good innovation. And then, we are a clothing company, but innovation doesn't only limit itself to making good clothes. Of course, you need a good product. That is the key. That should always be the key. But it's also different types of systems, marketing, customer flows, supply chain. Like we all know, AI is a super hot topic these days, and super exciting how you can use this to automate things and also just do things better. So I think you have to think innovation as incrementally always trying to do things better through some sort of technology or different way of thinking. And then sometimes you have these bigger innovation breakthroughs. Like, we don't innovate space rockets, but sometimes you have like, okay, yeah, wow, this is a game changer for us.
Maybe not the rockets, but maybe the astronauts' clothes.
Yeah, okay. Some good ideas coming.
Yeah, you are a partner to the Danish national football team.
Yeah.
That's as close as you get to making spacesuits in Denmark. Like, that's a big thing, right?
Yeah, it's a huge thing. Also, being a football fan all of my life, it's pretty incredible to see them wearing our suits. Super cool.
And how has the feedback been from the football team? They must have been pretty excited to get some clothes that's not stiff when they're used to moving around. They're athletes.
Definitely. The whole deal came about from one of the players who loved our clothes and recommended it as part of this traveling suit that they needed as part of being better dressed when they are getting to the games. So I think for everybody, it's a win-win. When they have to wear suits, it doesn't come more comfortable than Shaping New Tomorrow.
Of course, like, it's your company and you're saying that, but I completely agree. When I think my first pair of Shaping New Tomorrow pants, my girlfriend got them for me and told me a little bit about the story about your company, and they looked like regular dress pants, which I normally identify as like very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But then I was like, it's literally like pajama pants, the feeling, but they look extremely great. Like it's good stuff.
Yeah,
it's really good stuff.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, nobody knows until you've tried it,
until you try it.
Once you've tried it, you can't untry it.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're hooked.
There's no way back. And I think that's in general like a super important rule as an entrepreneur. You gotta try to make something that's sticky with your customer, because it's super hard to get new customers, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that when you get people to try whatever you are doing, that it sticks with them.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can get many different pants out there, and compared to when we started 9 years ago, you can also get much more other comfortable pants today.
Mm-hmm.
But we just want to be the best at what we are doing, and that's what we are seeing, and what you guys are saying. When we tried it, there's no way back. Now this is the pants I'm wearing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like that matched with something you said earlier as well, with you sort of began by solving a problem you had yourself, and then you found out actually a lot of other people had this problem. And then in the beginning, you had this constant feedback loop from customers because you were both innovating and selling the product yourself. So you knew what the customer were saying. And it's such a common thing that we tell entrepreneurs today. You must know the needs of your customers. You must test it with them and get this feedback to get to the successful point. And I think a lot of new entrepreneurs, they have a hard time taking that in. Like, what does that actually mean? Can you elaborate a little bit on how you're getting that feedback today, now that you're kind of one or multiple steps removed from the actual end customers on a day-to-day?
Great question. So I would just like to maybe start one step back. How do you do it when you are in the early stage?
Yeah.
Because I do think it's something that everybody knows, but maybe do not take serious enough. And
exactly, yeah.
If I had to do things over again, I would also have spent even more time like actually asking for customers' feedback before jumping into it. Because, you know, when you jump into it, like you kind of have your ass on the line, at least in our case. So I do think that it's super important that you make prototypes and you ask people real questions, not just your friends who's gonna tell you, yeah, this is great, but you know, really get out there and ask people about honest feedback and ask them the question at the end of your questionnaire: do you want to buy this product at the price that you want to be selling the product at? Because if they do not, you know, maybe you should start by looking a little bit more into your product before you quit your job and invest in a store or 4 employees, or, you know, however your journey might start. So really being super focused on getting people's feedback, I think is so important to really get your idea right.
That's such a good point, because it's very easy, especially when you're being polite and you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, even if you don't know them, to be like, oh, these are great, I love them, yes, of course I want to buy them.
Yeah.
But that's very different than putting the card down on the table, the payment card, and saying like, yeah, 2 please.
Exactly. It's so different. And you know, if people do not want to do that, you basically don't have any feet to stand on. So you gotta be super thorough in that process, because I do believe that most great ideas, they do need some iteration from like where they start.
Yeah, or 100.
yeah. Sometimes like complete iteration. Yeah, maybe you guys can tell a bit about that.
Yeah, we know what that means. That's for sure. Like a hard pivot is also something that we sometimes see that founders actually have a struggle with, is letting go of something that simply doesn't work. Maybe it's too early, maybe it's too late, but really having the skills to also look each other in the eyes. And you guys, you're 3 founders and we're 2 founders, look each other in the eyes and say, we got to move on now. Yeah. Like we can't keep this fire going.
It's a super strong skill to really be able to do that. In general, just being able to prioritize and say no to things.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, to bring him into the conversation, I saw an interview with his lead designer back in the day, and Steve would always ask him, what did you say no to today?
Yeah.
And he would, and then he would always give him like these things that he said no to, and then Steve would be like, yeah, but you didn't really care about those things.
Yeah.
So like he would be so focused on making you say no to stuff to really put your energy into the right things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's super important.
Yeah, there's something about that where I have seen that as well, where it's not about the things that you don't want to do anyway, that you say no to those. It's the ones that you really want to do, picking that right one. And in your journey, there must be a lot of products, innovations where you have to kill your darlings. How do you go about that in Shaping New Tomorrow?
I think there's not like one simple formula we use for it, but developing new innovative products usually take years, because we have to be so thorough at gathering this feedback and saying, okay, that's a great product, but is it good enough to solve the original problem that we stated? Or is it just a good product that's will be another good product in the assortment, because you don't want to just have 10 products doing the same thing just because it's all good products.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't have like an exact formula other than really being tough on asking, what is the purpose of this product? Is it solving the problem that I wanted it to? And is it doing something else than the rest of the products that we have?
Yeah, I think you have a really good point there. And like maybe another spin on that is what you hear a lot. Are you solving a need or a want? Is it need to have, or is it nice to have?
Yeah.
Right? And when it's something people just absolutely need to have, or at least have a perception they need to have it, then it doesn't really matter what the economy is, personal economy or whatever. If you need it, then you're going to buy it.
Yeah.
If it's something nice, well, then it's a luxury, and that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly. They did this nice study I read about where they set up this booth where they were selling jam, and for 3 days they had 30 different variants of jam, like everything you can imagine that's super delicious. And they measured the sale compared to the traffic that was. And then they set up the same booth, exact same location, and then they had only 3 variants. So obviously much more simple, not all the yummy, fancy variations. And what they found was that the sale was much better just with the 3 variants, because it was much easier for people to make a decision. So, you can easily get carried away in like all this innovation and developing, and we like this and we like that. But are you actually making your business stronger by it?
That is super interesting.
Do you think that's been one of your reasons why you've had so much success versus a lot of other clothing brands, is because you actually kept it simple in the beginning? I remember it's simple colors, not too many variants, and then doubling down on that. Would you say that that's been a big part of your success in also scaling, I suppose?
Yeah, definitely. We were talking very clearly to our core customer, who's like typically a man who wants to keep it simple. He wants to look nice, but he's not necessarily like super into all kinds of fashion. So it just has to work. And we had a simple message with our pants. We are solving a problem. And everybody understood it. So, yeah, I think that made it really clear what the value proposition was.
I think that is such a good statement there, because I think that's one of the things when I talk to new or inexperienced entrepreneurs that they struggle with. One of the things they struggle with the most is like, okay, who is your product for? Well, anybody can buy it.
Yeah.
If we take your pants, right? Well, who wears pants? Everybody wears pants. So we can sell the whole world. So we can market to the whole world, right? And then we have a global empire or whatever. But
it's a super hard question.
How do you stay on that?
You have to know who your core customer is, and that's what you have to be mainly focused on. So in our situation, that is comfort, it is convenience, and it is minimalistic style. That really speaks to our core customers' need. But when I was just explaining that, at the same time, I'm also thinking, we also have like fashionable dudes wearing our stuff. We also have younger men wearing our stuff. So, it will never be accurate defining your core customer, but it has a spillover effect. So the reason why you have to do it is to try and be super clear in what you focus on and what you communicate. And then it doesn't mean that you only cater to that core customer. But, then you know what you focus on.
Yeah.
And that's going to help you prioritize.
I really like what you said there, is focus on the core, and then you will, if it's a good product, or in your case, a great product, it will spill over, because it's not like that you're turning people out in the door and saying, nah, you can't get in because you're too young or too old or anything like that.
Everybody is welcome. And one of the beautiful things about our brand is that we often see 3 generations in our store, but it typically started with one of them.
Yeah.
And, then they recommend it to the rest of the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super important.
Christoffer, if we go back to the beginning, when you first started Shaping New Tomorrow with the other founders, can you just tell us a little bit of that story about, like, you told us a little bit about the pain that you guys realized, and then probably started making some prototypes to solve that pain. How did it go from kind of a project between some buddies back in the day into turning it into a business to getting into your first store? Can you take us on that journey?
I can try. And I think also it even started before having an actual good idea. There was a time where I was just making like different designs, just like small capsule collections, like very limited quantities. and just biking around on my bicycle to everybody who would let me in the door. Friends, typically. I wasn't knocking on doors, but
that's like a born entrepreneur.
Yeah, just trying to get that going. And yeah, then I linked up with my two co-founders, and we got this more, let's call it a better idea. It's a much better idea. And that really started with these pants, and we were like super determined to go all in on it. And it was not only the pants. Basically, we had two ideas. We wanted the pants idea we already talked about. And secondly, we wanted to make high quality clothes where you paid for the quality. Mm-hmm. Not that radical idea, you would think, but something that we knew was going to make sure that what we did was going to provide value for the customer. I think that's always what you have to think about. Mm-hmm. You got to have a mission where you are providing value to the customer. What did we do then? I was on fourth semester at university at this time. Yeah, I basically bought a one-way ticket to Portugal. I read on the internet that was a super good place to make high-quality products. And I could stay with my uncle there. So,
cool.
Yeah, so I checked in. Actually, I was so eager that I flew down there on my birthday. It's like...
then the motivation is very high.
Asked everyone for money for the plane ticket and then just go.
Yeah, I mean, I could have just waited like a week. I don't know. It was just like, now it's happening. Let's go.
Massive action.
Yeah, and I just came down there and I just made a list basically online of different suppliers, and I started calling around. And yeah, I kid you not, the first person that picked up the phone, she basically told me that, it's not going to happen. We don't even make these type of quantities in Portugal. Okay. She even laughed a little bit of me.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a rough first call.
Okay, yeah, it is.
Holy shit, man.
But yeah, then I spent 3 weeks down there. I didn't give up, obviously. Never give up.
Yeah.
And visited dozens of suppliers, and at the end of the day, I found this guy who had just taken over the company from his dad, and he listened to this vision of revolutionizing menswear. And I was not speaking with small words, and I think he kind of got the idea, and he thought, okay, why not? So he agreed to make a lot less than the normal minimums, and we basically got started. I found two guys like this, one with pants, and then one who was developing tops for us. I flew back and
back to Denmark.
Yeah, back to Denmark. All right, we had the first samples, and still didn't have any money. So I told these guys that money was not a problem, but it obviously was. I mean,
had you more or less like bootstrapped until this point?
We hadn't really spent any money at this point.
Okay.
So you could say bootstrapped. I spent like whatever money I had saved on some products and then sold it, and but it was not money in any significant scale.
Sure.
Yeah. So we got the sample. Didn't have any money yet, but I made a deal with my dad. I pitched the idea for him, the whole business model, and he said, okay. Everybody has good ideas, but prove it to me, and I will invest. Then we got the samples, and I think he kind of like, okay, shit, I didn't expect this to happen, but a deal is a deal.
Yeah.
So he actually gave us a loan of 300,000. So, and then he got some equity also for that loan. So that ended up being a pretty good deal for him. But it was also a good deal for us because, we had our money problem solved.
Yeah.
At least, like, the first money problem.
Short term.
Short term. We made a lease of a small store. Not even in the center of the town. A little bit next to where the other shops were, and we basically renovated everything ourselves. or in other words, Casper did. He took after gymnasium, he took 10 weeks as like a carpenter.
Okay.
Because he didn't know what
he was the handyman.
He didn't know what he was gonna study yet, and that just ended up becoming very handy for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That was in about like the high school days-ish, gymnasium, right?
Yeah, right after gymnasium.
For the
yeah.
non-Danes. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we renovated the store. Yeah, and then we opened. We managed to get the samples, like not the samples, the production at this point, like the day before the opening. So like super bad planning, but it all ended up making sense. And we had a super nice opening. We did all the old school things like hanging flyers around the city. We talked to all our friends and family, and we had a super nice opening. Maybe even Mikkel was there.
Yeah, I remember it.
You were there?
Yeah. I remember it. It was Jacob who, I think actually that was the first time that I really met you guys, or maybe it was actually the day before because you needed help with something. I think Casper, he was doing something the week before, and I remember how many boxes.
You made a sign for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
the old Shaping New Tomorrow.
Yeah. In metal that we put in the store.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the good old days.
It's amazing how cheap you can make a store. Like if you really try to.
Exactly. Yeah, it was some crazy days, and I remember that exact situation where you got all those boxes the day before, and you were just unpacking for the opening.
Busy. Yeah. So we opened the store and had some amazing days, and then we kind of ran out of friends and family to sell clothes to. So, yeah, what do we do now? And we had this small.
Was that about when you were getting near the end of that 300,000 that you had raised from your dad?
Yeah, so basically we spent pretty much all of it on the first collection, getting the lease, and getting everything up and running. So we spent almost everything. So there was at least a year where we were buying clothes and we had to sell the things to get liquidity to continue with the next ideas.
And for the entrepreneurs out there just starting out, what do you think was like the best and the worst way that you spent those 300,000 that you got?
I think the best thing I can say here is really going back to being more thorough before you start using your money, really gathering that feedback about your products. So you have more clarity on what you are spending your money on. So that was definitely our biggest mistake. Like we were trying too many different things, but it was also the recipe that made us succeed because we were pretty good at doing a lot of things and then seeing what worked and then doing more of that.
Got you.
So we definitely made like some weird products that we should have never made. Yeah.
Can you remember one of them?
We made these like we'd been skiing, like so after gymnasium, me and Casper, we stayed half a year in Val Thorens where we just skied every day. And when you live at a ski area like that and are into like doing tricks in the park and off piste and these kind of things, you have like kind of this like very baggy type of style. So we made these like super long t-shirts that were not at all a fit for the Danish market. and I remember that we then made them multi-purpose. So we also sold some to girls as like long t-shirt dresses, which kind of helped us get rid of the stock. So
gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do. It actually
straight from the innovation officer.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked pretty well.
You opened the store. You're running out of cash now. Then how you're starting to run out of friends and family to sell clothes to? When did it start to pick up for you?
We had this like period right after the opening where it's like, okay, nobody really knows about us yet. And the snowball effect from friends and family was too slow to get it up and running. So we had to find a way to get new customers. And one of the things that we did in the beginning was that we started going out a lot to like, different events, bars, parties, where there was a lot of people, and basically just talking to a lot of people, telling about this cool store that we had opened and about this concept that we had made. So like really super old school way of doing it, but it really worked and was super authentic. Not the fastest way to scale a big business, but when every customer counts, it was really a good formula for us. And what it also allowed us to do was to become more than just a clothing brand. So I think if you want to be a successful company, at least in many cases, you want to be selling more than just a good product. So what we managed to do was to also create a community around this store that we had made. So people didn't only come down to buy clothes, they also came down to chill. Like every Friday and Saturday, there would always be like packed with people, and then we would go and do something afterwards.
How do you create that? How do you go from we're just a store that sells clothes to we're a place that actually is like a place to be on maybe a Friday or a Saturday, and then we all go and do something afterwards? And is it by just being out and interacting so much, or some other type of marketing, or how do you create such a culture around it?
I can actually answer to that, because I was some of the ones that actually came to hang out, and I actually think what you guys did very well is you're some good guys, and you also, I remember you always took care of people. Do you have a beer? You know, you were good at servicing people and making people feel that, okay, this is not just a store. It's a place where we kind of take care of each other. Men usually need kind of a place to hang out, and you can kind of say like, oh, it's been a shit day. Oh, take a beer and, let's talk about it. It kind of became a place where you could kind of share a little bit about your week without it being any woo-woo where we sat in any kind of circle. And I actually think, going back as I remember it, that was one of the things that kind of intrigued me was, oh, here we were, just a bunch of guys hanging out, getting a beer, and, you sold a little bit of clothes, or you said like, I was like, oh, that t-shirt, that's cool. Oh yeah, come on in and I'll see if we can find something. And it became a community, essentially.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah.
It's some good memories.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think to answer your question, it kind of came naturally because we were so like passionate about what we were doing, and we were spending all our time there, So also making our workplace like an amazing place for us to be just made everything make sense. And then it's like a beautiful circle when you get it going, because as Mikkel says, he felt like people were taking care of each other. So, if you get a lot of good people to come to the same place, it's not even about us anymore. It's just like a place where it's nice to be. So I think we really managed to become that type of place, which was, super good for that store. And also like really, really fun times to run the company.
Yeah, that's really cool. You're not the first entrepreneur to be on our podcast who have also said like, well, I spend a lot of my time at work. So now it's just like, it's so obvious to then hear it like, well, I spend all my time there. So of course I want it to be a place that's nice to be, because that's where I always am, or I am very often. Right. And also what you said, Mikkel, too, is just about like, you just feel taken care of there. And it's like a fun place to be where you're welcome and everything. And I also just think of, when I get my haircut at Chow Chow here in Aalborg, it was like, I just feel taken care of there.
Yeah.
Like the guy Ricardo, he always remembers what we talked about last time. You get a cup of coffee. Sometimes I get a whiskey from him too. You never know. And it's just like, so I always go there.
But it's pretty simple, right? I mean, I also go the same place every time to get my haircut.
Exactly.
Like, why should I experiment with 5 different haircuts?
How was the experience for you guys then, going from opening that first store, having that local feel to it, the local vibe, getting the sign made by Mikkel, everything like that, to scaling into other areas of Denmark, and then eventually internationally as well?
Yeah, so there's still quite a long journey to scaling internationally yet.
Yeah. let's just take the next step after this.
And actually, that's not true, because the next thing that we did was that we went on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Which was super international. Let me tell a bit about that. What we figured out. So we were at this stage that how are we gonna make people know about this thing we're doing? We know that it's great. We know that people who come here, they love our products.
Yeah.
But the clothing market is like a super crowded space. So so how do we make anybody notice us? And in the beginning, we kind of did what everybody else was doing. That seemed like a reasonable place to start. But what we figured out was that what we want to do is we want to focus on the problem that we are solving. Mm-hmm. I got introduced actually by a guy that I studied with at university to this platform called Kickstarter, which is, for the people who don't know it, crowdfunding. So basically you put your product in there, you make like a page, and then people can buy the product before the product is made. Super nice when you are constrained for cash. Mm-hmm. So we made this Kickstarter campaign where we said, fuck sweatpants, stay classy. That was
was that the slogan?
That was the tagline.
Okay.
And we basically just showed the pants in different situations and like had this taekwondo guy going crazy in them, and really just showed how that you could now look classy without wearing sweatpants. And we ran this campaign and we managed to crowdfund 160,000 Danish.
Which was huge at the time. I remember it.
Yeah,
it was a great success.
It was huge at the time. And I never forget that feeling of doing it, because the crowdfunding campaign was linked to my email, and I still had I didn't get that many emails at the time, so I still had notifications on for my email. So every time somebody pledged, I would get this order on my phone, like Mark from USA just bought 2 pair of pants, and like it was exhilarating. It was really like, okay, you really started to get this feeling of, okay, I think we're going to make it.
Yeah, something's happening.
Yeah, this is internationally that people are showing interest for this concept. So we did this Kickstarter campaign. Of course, we delivered all the pants. And
was that when you made the commercial with, I think it was even in the Create building where the guy was doing backflips and stuff like that? And I just remember the specific commercial back when I was studying, and I was like, that's actually in the building where I was studying.
Yeah. So that was not used in the Kickstarter campaign. But,
okay.
But what we learned from the Kickstarter campaign was really how we should market this concept. So we started doing commercials where we were explaining the benefits of our products. And also we started using me in a lot of the videos, which was not something that people were doing a lot at the time. The owners of the company talking to the camera, talking directly to the consumer. And both of these things were something we learned from doing the Kickstarter video. And that really worked. So this really made us able to run an e-commerce business now. And that got things going at a different level compared to just a small store we had in Aalborg, which was also thriving more and more as the snowball started getting more and more rolling.
That feeling of seeing those emails, when you remember it back and just seeing it, just the dopamine and stuff like that. You hear entrepreneurs talk about like when they raise their first money or get the first investment or the first customer. Can you go back and remember, is that one of the happiest time in the journey, that like looking back on that Kickstarter campaign?
It's definitely one of them. There's no doubt that in the beginning, like the dopamine for these like milestones are much higher. It's really incredible. It's a lot of fun. So that's definitely one of them. I also have several good memories of some of the events that we were doing in the beginning as we really started getting more and more popular.
Yeah.
And we always did events when we were launching our collections. And, at some point there started being like an actual queue outside the door every time we were doing these events. And yeah, so that was also like, I remember these days as, okay, yeah, this is really, this is something.
And what after the Kickstarter campaign, then as I remembered, you actually go to do another Kickstarter campaign, but on underwear.
Yeah, so we also had this idea of underwear, which we are still selling, which was inspired by the Danish military. Again, like something, a problem you have, and then a product that solves it. So both Christian and Casper, my two co-founders, they were in the military, and you have to do these like super long walks. And they used to give you these underwear that's made in like a sports fabric, which is super nice when you are active all day.
Yeah.
So we also did a campaign on that kind of. You have to think as Shaping New Tomorrow, the concept as really taking the best from two worlds, that being the sports world and then like the everyday, whatever you have to attend to, and really combining these two in one so you can feel good and look good no matter what you have to do. And the pants did that, the boxers did that, and yeah, we developed several products since that also do that.
Now you really start to take and speed up here. Take us through that journey to like kind of where you are today, because that's also kind of a long journey, but there's a lot of exciting things in there. Like, as you said, now you went from being a store to an e-commerce and then actually expanding with stores. Tell us a little bit about that.
At this period of time, things were growing, and one day, one of our good friends, who we since hired, he's head of supply chain today. So, like that advice paid off. No, just kidding. But he told us that it could be a great idea to go into Løvens Hule, the Danish version of Shark Tank, and I think at the time it was
the Lion's Den, right?
The Lion's Den, yeah, better translation.
Yeah, exactly.
I think at that time it was the second most watched program in Denmark, and we made an application. And I remember this woman, she called me just to like hear a bit more about the business and see if we were eligible for going to an audition. And then we talked for like 20 minutes, and she said like, yeah, you guys sound super cute. You can come. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see if the business also is good. Yeah. So we went there, and yeah, crazy experience having to go down those stairs and pitch your ideas for basically the sharks. It's also TV, so they do everything they can to like be tough on you, and
dramatic.
It's dramatic, and they have different opinions, and one of them, he didn't believe that we could own this space that we were pitching. He was sure that one of the more established players would take this. We obviously didn't agree with him. At the end, we got an investment from Birgit Åby and Jesper Buch at a way too low valuation. I believed that at the time, and that proved to be true, but didn't really matter. We wanted to get some experienced people on board. We wanted to do this partnership, and I'm super happy that I swallowed my pride, because I didn't think it was a good offer, but we did it anyway. And even though the valuation wasn't fair, it was still a super good deal for everybody. So,
because their expertise could take you to another level, and also I would imagine being on the show was a good marketing ploy for your company as well. Like it got a lot of eyeballs, I'm sure. Yeah,
it was like a twofold advantage, you could say, because at that time it was just the three of us. So like actually getting aboard and like getting a lot of this experience into how to run a company more professionally was super beneficial for us at that time. And then the whole TV part, actually being able to speak directly to, I think, 1 million viewers about what makes these products, these pants, so amazing. So, after the show aired, it went crazy. We went from 1 million a month Danish in revenue to 1 million a day, and we ran that for like 4 days, and then we had no stock left. And it was a crazy time because it was still just the 3 of us and 1 sales assistant in the store. And to make things worse, there was a mistake in the back end of the website. So we sold, I think, 1,500 pants that we didn't even have. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Okay, how do you get yourself out of that one?
So we actually learned a lot from this. I'm really glad that it happened, because what you could have done was to send an email out to everybody, like a standardized email explaining the situation, and ask people to wait until they get back in stock. What we did was that we recruited like a group of friends, and then we called everybody and explained the situation and where we were in the process of getting their pants home, and asking them to wait, basically, offering them other colors that were in stock. And the amazing thing was that you can count on 2 hands how many people actually canceled their order.
Wow.
So, that whole idea of actually being sincere and being personal to the consumer, that really worked, and is a core part of also the DNA of the company today.
Hey, Mick and Trav here. We're not only podcast hosts, we are also entrepreneurs who've raised millions of dollars for our own company.
That's right, and now we're helping founders like you do the same. If you want to work with us, DM us the word podcash on Instagram, which you can find in the description below. That's the word podcash. I'm curious where that comes from in you and in your co-founders, because there's actually been multiple points in our conversation now where you've actually talked about being a little old school, a little door to door, a little like being personal with the customer, being physically with the customer, doing things in sort of like an old school but very personal way.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Does that come from somewhere, or is that just where does that come from in you guys?
Yeah, I don't have that much self-knowledge that I can detect the root of it. But I can say, like, the reason for it is that I have always believed that you have to understand what you are selling. I've never been so naive to think that I just know everything. And, that whole process of really trying to understand your customers is like the first step of being personal, right?
Yeah.
I believe that you have to sell experiences. And you can do that through technology. You should do some of it through technology.
Yeah.
But you also have to be somewhat personal if you want to create great experiences. So I think that's like the 2 main reasons for it. And probably also having that passion in the company that you are running. It is just more fun if you also care about what you do and the people that you sell to. And I think maybe that's the most important thing of this, actually, because if you have that enthusiasm, wow, that's a difficult word. Excuse my Danglish. But if you do have that enthusiasm, I think a lot of it comes naturally.
Yeah.
You're on a rocket ship that's taking off, and now you incur kind of the first, how can you say, scalability problem. There's probably been more scalability problems along the way, and at this point in time, you're still quite inexperienced in like running the company. But now you set down a board. What have been the biggest learning there in like scaling?
Yeah, that's a super great question, because that was the problem. We were not ready to scale this fast. Everything was manual. We didn't have any employees, and now we gotta get all these products sent out, and it was crazy. But we did what we did best at the time. We called all the good people that we know, and basically, set up a team of friends and family who were like doing all the packaging, and then it was me and the sales assistant in the store selling products that we didn't have, So it was 3 months of making things work. And I remember Casper telling me that, because Casper was like, he was just like printing these shipping labels like all day, because that wasn't like in any way automated. And and I remember him saying like, he was thinking about shipping labels when he went to bed at night, when he woke up in the morning. And it was just like this for 3 months, working from 8 to 10 every day, just like, making things work. We started automating things, started implementing different technologies. And, that was a turning point for us. So we could actually get out of this positive hole, because it's a super nice situation to be in, that you sold so much that you're struggling with how to get it all out to the customers.
Luxury problem.
It's a luxury problem, but it's still a problem though, because you also have to keep developing the business, which is pretty hard when you're at this point. And I traveled to Portugal at this time to scale up the production. And I remember the same guy that had taken over his his dad's company, and
And then they decided they could actually produce in a higher scale.
They were already producing at a much higher scale at this point. We were ordering thousands of pans already, but now we really had to scale. And Portuguese are like quite conservative in their way of life, and they care a lot about basically having people work. So the worst thing that can happen is, you scale and then you go to the ground as fast as. So, it was also like a lot of convincing that this was actually real. And I remember like on the last day saying goodbye to him, like I had to like give him a big hug and say, Vitor, everything is gonna be okay. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. And it was like super emotional. But
wow.
Yeah, and today they have actually built a factory that's almost twice the size of the original factory. So it's also been a super exciting journey for them. Then we got to the other side of that, and we figured out that we were really good at running stores, and this is also quite an exciting journey. So we opened our second store in Copenhagen. I went there and lived for 3 months. That cost me a dog. My girlfriend told me that you can go, but then I need a dog, which she had been talking about for 2 years. So.
Okay, you worried me for a second. I thought you lost a dog, so I was like, no.
I didn't lose a dog. I didn't kill a dog. I had to buy a dog.
my heart was breaking over here, but okay, you gained a dog.
And I learned to love the dog, so it's all good. But she took advantage of the situation. She's pretty smart. But so that was an exciting time, coming to the capital, opening our first store away from home. What's this gonna be like? Is that gonna be? Are we gonna be able to generate the same interest as in our hometown?
Yeah, and to generate that same experience that you guys were talking about when you come into a Shaping New tomorrow, how do you feel as a customer? What experience do you get, especially if it's not going to be you guys physically staying there, if you have to train other people to give that same experience? How do you duplicate that?
Yeah, that was a crucial reason for me to go there also, to really make sure we had the right people, and also work to duplicate what was it that I was doing when it was just me in the store, for now having because it was pretty obvious to me that I was not going to be in both stores. At that point, that was pretty clear. So working to really make that experience scalable has been a super important part of what Shaping New Tomorrow is today. but maybe we can, get more into that later if you want.
Sure.
So we are opening the store in Copenhagen, and as usual, we don't know what we are doing in regards to planning. We had never set up a stock in this way before, so we are working with this new team until 4 at night to set this stock up, and we have to open. We have to meet in the store next day at 8. Like super crazy, but already here was the first and most important ingredients to scaling a good culture and experience. You need the right people.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, we actually managed to have people in this store that already from day one was burning to make this a success, which is something incredible to be a part of. And something that made me super proud because, it's not their company, but they still treat it like it's our company. That's a fantastic thing, and something, I really think is important to aim for, to have this.
Did it create like a strong bond also that you kind of already on the first launch went to war together?
Exactly.
That you're like, okay, tomorrow morning we're gonna drink 15 Red Bulls to really get up to gear because we've been staying up all night. Because I suppose a lot of people nowadays, are we gonna work that long? And and it's my first time here and I don't really know the company. And then you have the people who are like, let's fucking go. Let's get this store, no matter how long, or if it was an all-nighter. But you actually managed to hire those people who like...
It's a super good point. And maybe it has also been more defining for the culture than I even know that, from day one, we were going to war together. The guy who's today the country manager in Denmark, he was just a sales assistant, a part-time sales assistant when we opened the store in Copenhagen.
That's incredible.
The guy who's the global sales and culture manager in our stores today, he was hired as a full-timer when we opened that store. So, already from day one, we went to war together. So, super, super nice point.
How do you hire people like that?
Again, there's no recipe I can tell. You have to focus on people's mindset. The best people are always the people with the right mindset. Mm. They are going to grow, and it's your job to make sure that they grow. And maybe you shouldn't hire somebody with just the right mindset for a super technical data position. So it also is different from position to position, but always prioritize mindset over experience. It's my experience at least.
Which has worked out very well for you.
Yeah, but we also, made a lot of learnings on the way. So we opened the store the day after. Everybody drinks a lot of coffee and Red Bull. That was necessary.
Yeah.
To our big surprise, and it was all that we could have hoped for. There was hundreds of meters long queue. It was incredible, and talking about the best moments in the journey of developing Shaping New Tomorrow, that was definitely one of them. That was incredible. And but again, the same thing happened a little bit as it did when we opened our first store. And I think this is something that's just important to know. At least it takes time to build the snowball effect.
Yeah.
So we also had that period afterwards, not in the same way as when we started way in the beginning, but we definitely had a period after the opening where it was a lot more slow than we hoped for. So we went from this incredible experience of a lot of interest and long queue and here we come, Copenhagen, to a slower than expected period. And that's also entrepreneurship, right? Ups and downs. You really need to have a strong stomach.
Tom Hanks actually has this thing where he sits with Robert De Niro and Shia LaBeouf, and he says if there's one thing he learned throughout his life is saying shall pass.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's like when you're at the high, this too shall pass. When you're at the low, this too shall pass. And I think that was one of my biggest learnings as an entrepreneur is like when shit hits the fan, it's not coming alone. Usually it comes with more problems. But usually when success hits you, it's also going to hit you with more success. It has a little bit of a snowball effect, but so does trouble. So you got to get used to being up and down. It's never just linear curve as people actually think, right?
Yeah, and you're kidding yourself if you think that when I solve this problem, everything is going to be great.
Yeah.
So, if you don't understand this, you're just going to be jumping from problem to problem, which you are anyway, but, it's how you think about it.
Yeah.
And I think, you
got to enjoy the journey along the way.
Yeah, you have to, the pain is okay. The pain of the problem is okay. You need to feel that in order to attack the problem. But it's the suffering that's not okay, which is like constantly thinking about your problems. Because then, if you're just jumping from problem to problem, then you're going to have all this time where you think about how much that sucks. And then you're going to solve the problem. And then you're going to feel like a slight moment of happiness until you're just going to suffer from the next problem.
Yeah.
So you really have to learn how you deal with problems.
Yeah. Can you at least tell me that in the second store they got an automatic label maker for the shipping labels? Or did they have...
They were not sending packages from this store. They were just like a regular store.
That's like the real initiation is printing the labels.
That's true.
No, but like the store in Aalborg at this point was not the same one as where we started. We had moved in a more central location now, where we actually had like an office in the back. So the store and the office were connected, which was also like super nice for the culture.
How many stores did you grow to in Denmark before you then went? Was Germany the first international store then?
Now we opened the store in Copenhagen, and just to round that off, same learnings as in the beginning in Aalborg, like really going out and talking to people. It really works, and that was also like. And just like we did all different types of events and stuff, just experimenting with stuff, I think is generally a good idea when you're trying to build something from scratch. Then we continued the rollout, but it wasn't smooth because, as some of you might remember, then Corona hit.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was like a jungle to navigate. We opened our third store in Aarhus in the summer, in the middle of Corona. So when it turned summer, they actually like allowed things to open a bit again.
Things opened up a
but it was
more.
still like a lot of restrictions, and you didn't like know exactly what you could do and not. So that was crazy opening, because for this opening we had even more queue than in Copenhagen. So it was a lot of people, and we had to like manage all these restrictions and distance and
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Another experience. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
We opened in Aarhus, we opened in Odense, and we opened in Esbjerg. So that's the stores we have in Denmark. And then we set our eyes on Germany. So what we did was that we started online. So we basically did a lot to try and scale our e-commerce to Germany. And again, trying to focus, not like putting international under the same bracket, but we decided to focus on Germany. There's like a lot of bubbles in this.
We've talked about state. That's a note for you guys. Less carbonation in those guys.
It's super tasty, but it's not good for talking.
Exactly.
We opened our first international store in Hamburg.
Yeah.
Which has also been like an incredible journey to do the same thing as we did in Denmark, but in Germany. And one of the things I'm really proud of in that journey is that we have actually managed to scale this culture of creating customer experience now both to Denmark, Germany, and Sweden. And of course, it will be different from every store that you go into. But no matter what store that people are visiting from Shaping New Tomorrow, we are hearing that it's just an incredible customer experience. And I think that's, it's really important.
It goes back to what you said before, is it's not just about selling a product, it's about selling an experience, because that experience is very difficult to copy, right? Because it's about humans.
Exactly.
And how these humans have been trained, and that training is so difficult for someone like H&M or some of the other bestseller brands or whatever it is, to make those pants so that when you go into H&M, you get the same experience buying a pair of pants as you do at Shaping New Tomorrow. And I think that is really an important thing for people out there listening that have a selling products, is if you can make a product that's great, but you can amp it up by selling an experience, then you have something where investors, they always say, what if you get copied? Well, selling the experiences, that's extremely difficult to copy. And that's what you've done incredible and keep doing. And I suppose that's why you have success scaling to other locations as well.
And the only way you can do it is if you are able to make people passionate about the company's values.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can make a lot of nice sales manuals and stuff. I think everybody has that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to having people who really aligns with the company's values. And of course, you're not gonna get the exact same experience in Aarhus as you are in Copenhagen.
No.
You're not gonna get the exact same experience every time you go to the Aarhus store, because there will be different people at work.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as it's based on the right values, it's gonna be pretty good, and it's gonna be something else than going to a lot of other stores.
Mm-hmm. It's like one of those things, right, in hiring, where it says, I'm just gonna tell you that we have to go from A to B, but how we go there, that's up to you. That's kind of the same, right? You kind of want to create that you want to move the customer from A to B, and in this case, it's like creating an experience that they haven't been seeing in any other stores, topped with a great product, right? But how they get there, it doesn't matter if it's Julie or Kim or Brian that takes care of you. You'll get there. You'll get an experience.
Yeah, and it's definitely not like we are the only company who's good at this. But I do think you will see a trend that people who are generally good at this will also have relatively success with what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you're trying to grow and duplicate these cultures in your stores, and especially like one thing is to do it in different cities within the same country of Denmark, for example, but another thing is to go into Germany, to go into Sweden. And I'm really curious, what has been sort of the most exciting thing about going into a new country and setting up a store, and what has been like the hardest thing about doing that?
So the most exciting things is definitely just going to new countries and seeing that they also love our products.
Yeah, that must be wild, actually.
Yeah, I think that's pretty incredible. And also, you know, validates that we are on the right path in what we are doing. The hardest thing is definitely that you are starting from scratch in every city. And I've talked a lot about how we did it in Aalborg, how we did it in Copenhagen, but that was still like at a relatively small scale. You know, now we have to do it in a lot of different cities. So that whole part of not only offering a good service, but also creating like a super nice culture around the store and really creating that snowball effect. That's that takes time and it takes a lot of work. But so that's both the hardest thing, but also a super exciting thing.
Yeah.
It's been one hell of a journey, Christoffer, and in all of this scaling, I mean, it's been so many learnings. What have been the biggest learning for you as an entrepreneur? Like, what have moved the needle for you the most, where you were like, this is where I was when I started, and this is where I am now? What have been the biggest, like, I need to change here?
Yeah, that's a crazy question, right? Because hopefully you develop a lot.
Yeah.
We've been in business for 9 years now, so I don't know what the one thing is. If I should try and start with one thing, I would actually say reading books, I think. So I don't know how much we talked about this, but for the first 2 years we started the business, I was studying at university. And that was pretty crazy to manage starting a business and also studying at the same time. But it was actually super important for us. We all did it because we have this super nice thing in Denmark where you actually get paid to study, which
is amazing.
It is amazing, and I think it's a huge driver for why we are so innovative in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
And this allowed us to not take any salaries for ourselves the first 2 to 3 years and really reinvest everything back in the company, which was absolutely crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Like we needed that in order to run this test, fail, learn method that we were that we were doing. That meant that I had plenty of reading to do from that. But after I finished university, I started reading books that was actually things that were self-educating for me, skills that I actually needed to become better in who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be an expert within. And I think that was a game changer for me. The ability to actually learn from some of the best out there who has, taken the time to put this into different principles that you can take and apply to your own life, I think is, something you have to do if you take self-development, and you have to take self-development serious if you want to be a successful entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. What are 3 good books that you read that you can recommend to the listeners?
I really like 7 Habits of Highly Efficient People. I also like Principles by Ray Dalio, which
good
is
one.
Yeah, it's super nice. It's basically like, how if you start to develop principles and like think in this way, you will experience that a lot of things is just another one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And when you become really good at that, you also become much better at decision making and not spending too much like resources at making the same type of decisions because you have a mental framework for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I should pick a third one, I would go with something completely else and say Shoe Dog. Which is the story about Nike, which is for me an amazing story because like the struggle that he had to endure to build that brand is just amazing. And it's really also a story about when you are being true to your customers, you can get away with a lot of things. There's this story in the book about when they were trying to set up some new suppliers, and then they had to go to this very important fair for them, and this new supplier just completely missed on the logo on the shoe. It looked like shit, but everybody was buying the shoe anyway. And one of the guys from Nike goes up and he says like, why are you buying our stuff? And they said, we just trust you guys. So, if you can really build that trust with your customers, it's just a super, super nice relationship.
Sounds like a lot of good journeys within that book and a lot of relatable towards building a brand, especially within the clothing industry and everything like that as well.
Yeah, there's also another cool story in there where it tells how they developed the whole Air Max technology, like putting that bubble in the shoe. And it was like quite a catastrophe because a lot of people on the first shoe they put to market like got back pains and stuff because there was a mistake in the shoe. But the running community was so excited that finally a company was actually trying to innovate within running shoes that they kind of got forgiven for the mistake.
Okay. That's wild.
So you don't have to be into like, you don't necessarily have to do clothes to learn a lot from that book.
I'm curious now as well, like you guys have gone really far in your journey so far. What's next? What does the future of Shaping New Tomorrow look like?
Oh, that's a big question. What does the future look like? So I always like to, you need to have like, I think you need to not be too specific when you think long term. So when I think long term, it's more in the phrases of keep adding more values to our customers, keep innovating our business model, and just keep becoming better at what we are already good at. I think that's like the long-term vision, and where that will take us, time will tell. Some of the exciting things that we have recently started is going into women's wear, which is a super exciting journey. That's like a small company within the company where we get to take all the learnings basically and apply to how to build a women's brand. So I think that's a super exciting journey where we've also really had a nice start. And again, we got to listen to the customers. Yeah. So we've already made some great products and have had a lot of good feedback. We also gotten a lot of feedback for things we can improve, and really like taking the women customers on this journey, I think is something that makes it super exciting to be part of the women's brand, and enables us to become really, really good at that. Yeah, and we're definitely going to scale to more countries. Now we've opened a lot of stores. Yeah, we have 5 stores in Germany. We just opened in Stockholm and Göteborg. So in the near future, our focus will be on really building that culture around those stores that we've talked a lot about.
That sounds amazing. Are you bringing back the extra long baggy T-shirts for the women's store, or was that just a one-time thing?
I think maybe we had that learning.
Okay. Fair to say.
Christoffer, you are 3 founders. It's you, Christian, and Casper. Casper being the CEO, and Christian kind of being the brand and marketing genius behind this. You hear a lot about companies that fail because of founders feud, and you've been on a massive scaling journey with lots of problems. How do you 3 stay close throughout a journey like that? Because you were friends before. How have you managed to like stay together and not? Because there's probably been some tough talks at some point, but how have you stayed on top of that game?
That's an interesting question, and I think maybe the first point to it is that even though it's hard work to have co-founders, I think it's super important to have someone to share the journey with, and to also have those discussions that it takes to make good decisions. So I would think that the right choice for most people is to find some good co-founders. But I also think that you can make a lot of, wrong choices here. And for us, we balanced on where you could make this wrong choice, because I do think one of the wrong choices you can make is to just start a company with some good friends because you are good friends.
Yeah.
And, then you talk about this idea and you're like, okay, let's do it. And then in reality, you figure out that you actually all want to kind of do the same thing in this company. And then it's going to be like an endless discussion.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you find people that have different skills than you, and also to some degree have different ways of thinking. But you also have to be united in the vision and the mindset, because you don't want to be in a situation where you are too different, at least when it comes to the amount of work you need to put in to start a company.
Yeah.
I think that's something that puts a lot of people in a bad situation if you have not really considered well in advance what it takes to really build a company.
Yeah.
Especially if you're ambitious about it. So I'm not necessarily saying you can't make a nice business without putting an insane amount of hours into it. But I am probably saying that if you're super ambitious, you are going to put those insane amount of hours into it because you're building something that you want to be big and you're building it from scratch.
Yeah.
So if you have different levels of ambitions, it's going to be super hard to be a nice co-founding team.
Mm-hmm.
The ambition level can be a little different. It's okay that you have somebody who like, that's okay, as long as it's not completely different. So I think that's like the initial thoughts and discussions you need to have. In our case, it has turned out to be an advantage, I would say, that we were really good friends, because it has allowed us to, just to say it frankly, like sometimes shout a little bit at each other, like really being angry at each other, like get it out of the system, and then saying, okay, now we're friends again. So, and I think that's super important that you are able to have those discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Having that strong foundation.
Yeah, without like, if it nags you, if every time you disagree, it just builds and builds and builds. It's like a bad relationship, right?
Yeah.
Then before you know it, you are fighting over the dishwasher, and it has nothing to do with the dishwasher,
Sure, yeah.
So you really need to be able to have those discussions and tough conversations up front. And actually, one of the things I learned from Ray Dalio's book was really that the importance of radical open-mindedness and saying things like they are, but in a constructive way.
Yeah.
The most valuable thing you can do for me as my co-founder or my fellow colleague is to tell me things like they are.
Yeah.
That's the most valuable feedback you can get. That's really where you grow and you are able to improve yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So really having that open mindset is in general a key aspect of a strong culture. And a strong culture starts from the founder team, at least if you're a founder-led company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
I love that. Couldn't agree more as well. I know in Mikkel and my partnership as well, it's very similar. We're able to be very open with each other and also like receive feedback very openly to and from each other as well. And like you said, that's just where you can just grow and be like, and just be willing to be like, okay, maybe that idea wasn't that great or whatever it should be, right? And just kind of get past it, get it out and get past it so that it doesn't build up, and then you can just get that momentum right back on track again.
Yeah, and sometimes you have an idea that you believe is a good idea, but maybe it gets dropped anyway.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
But that's part of being a team and you have to accept it. So I think that like this way of working where you have the discussions and you listen to each other and, you argue. And then when you make a decision, even though you don't necessarily totally agree with the decision, you commit to it.
Yeah.
You 100% commit to it. You are not like, but I thought we should have done something else. So, that's his problem.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of killing your ego, right?
On the last note here, I would like to ask you, what are some of your habits that keeps you on top of your game when you're going through a journey like this?
Yeah, and habits are so important, right? That's maybe also another advice for some books, The Power of Habits. Really having some good habits that make sure that you have a lot of energy. That's what my habits mainly focus on, because you need a lot of energy if you want to stay on your A game, like for long days.
Yeah. Also, when you're talking a lot to people, right? Even though you're an extrovert, I would assume.
I'm in the middle, actually.
Are you in the middle?
I would say I'm in the middle, yeah.
Okay, but at least I remember from being in the store in those early sales days, but also when you go out and launch the stores, you talk to a lot of people. And that's tough to do a whole day with the same energy and passions and stuff like that. So you got to have habits that kind of energize you. So what do you do then?
That takes a lot of energy, but also being a leader takes a lot of energy, because you gotta have the surplus, and you gotta make decisions all day, every day, so you really need that energy. And yeah, that comes with good habits. So some of the things I do is that I take a cold shower every morning. Mm-hmm. I figured out that that's even better than coffee.
Yeah.
I do drink a lot of coffee also.
The combination is lethal.
Yeah, it's essential. What else do? I try to exercise 4 to 5 times a week. I meditate every day. Morning is a must, and I try to do it every evening also. So, that really makes sure that I set my mind up in the right way. So that's super important to me. So that's the morning meditation. That's really setting my mind up in the right way. And the evening meditation is to let things go so you can relax.
I like that.
I think that's also super important. Because, if you don't sleep well, it's you can say goodbye to that good energy.
Yeah, that's so true. And I really like the way that you started approaching this question by saying the habits are to build and keep the energy. Because I think it becomes popular today. There's so many different things in this area of biohacking and everything like that, which is all really good stuff. But if you're spending 3 hours a day doing all these different biohacking routines, it's not all of it that resonates with everyone. And like you listed the ones that just keep you on top, and different things work for different people, but the goal should be like you have a net positive amount of energy that you can just pour into whatever it is that you're passionate about at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's always super strong if you know why you're doing things.
Yeah.
So I think it takes like 90 days to build a strong habit. That's a lot of time where you have to be consistent in something. You gotta know why you're doing it to really stick with it, so it actually becomes a habit.
Love that.
Yeah, then I'm like quite into longevity and studying like different things you can do to basically live longer. Mm-hmm. And I'm taking it still easy on that one, but implementing a few things that that I hear from many sources. It's always nice if you have more sources saying the same thing.
Yeah.
One of them is intermittent fasting. I think is super nice. And it even connects with my goal of having more energy.
Yeah.
Another one is not taking any sugar during the day, which also relates to the whole energy thing. It's like you're doing yourself a bare favor, we say in Danish, if you think you're getting more energy by drinking a can of Coke. You might get a spike of energy, but when you get used to not doing any sugar all through day, your energy level gets much more consistent.
Makes a lot of sense. Really interesting hearing from you today. And we have a tradition on this podcast where we have our little canister here with some thought-provoking questions inside of it. And if you want to play the game, we'll just pull one question out and read it for you and just see where it takes us.
All right. Interesting. I like it.
What is the best quote that comes to mind that helps you along this journey, and why, if you have one? Is there been any quote throughout the journey that has just sort of spoken to you or kind of helped you when you were in a dark place, or really like latched on when you were in a great place, or anything that's you've carried with you in your journey?
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that one is nice. You have to remember that.
Yeah. To the point, simple.
Yeah.
Gets you where you need to go.
And it's crucial, if you're not hungry anymore, you're stagnating. If you're not staying foolish, at least how I understand it, you're not having fun with it anymore either. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also building upon that is a lot of the times people, they take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And they immerse themselves in that the startup becomes their identity, and they start taking themselves so seriously that it could even be with the longevity, right? Or the biohacking that they can't diverge, and then they essentially stop living life, but stressing about all these things that to keep this image about that you don't do sugar or you don't do this or your startup is not doing well, so now you're not doing well, but kind of separating yourself and still living life, right? That's kind of how I take it sometimes with like stay foolish is still have fun, have good habits, but also still live life.
Yeah, don't get too drunk on yourself.
Exactly.
And I think everything in life is basically balance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you manage to keep a good balance in things, yeah, you're just gonna live a much better life.
Agreed.
Not that I'm an expert in life per se, but I think that's really something that you learn along the way. That if you go too much in one direction, you have to course correct a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to play one more?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go one more. If you could instill one piece of advice into a newborn baby that they would just grow up with having as a intrinsic part of themselves, what would that be and why?
One advice or one skill or value?
Yeah, it could be a piece of advice. It could be a skill, a value. If you could just one piece of something that you could just say, this baby, it'll grow, it'll have this forever.
Believe in yourself.
Self-belief.
Yeah. Believe in yourself. I think, through good times and tough times, you got to believe in yourself without becoming arrogant or drunk on yourself or anything but, believe in yourself, believe you can do it. That's what really enables you to do things that people don't think is possible.
That's true.
That's great. It's been obvious too in your journey that there've been many points where you've also had to believe in yourself. So I think that's really good advice. And I've also had through our talks today, there have been a lot of really great takeaways for me. For example, just from the beginning, like testing with your customers and making sure that people are going to pay money for what it is that you want to buy. There were so many good bits of advice for earlier entrepreneurs just starting out, hiring for the mindset first and really making sure you have people with that right mindset inside of your organization.
And that is really where the journey change, you know, you go from being a few guys, maybe just you, who starts a company and you do everything on your own, you do whatever it takes to make it work. And then at one point, you actually start scaling, and then you gotta bring people in. You have to find a way to bring people in that will believe in your vision, that will contribute to it, and then you need to find a way that you are able to actually give them the responsibility. Because otherwise, what's the point of hiring a lot of people if you still want to do everything yourself? But you have to do it in the right order. If you just hire people and I have to give some of the responsibility away and they haven't shown that they can do it yet, that can also really bring you into trouble.
Yeah.
That's a good advice.
So crucial. I also just love that pure line, sell experiences. Like you're selling clothing, but sell experience was kind of like the bottom line there that really stuck through. And just being value focused. Like when you're growing, innovating, whatever that should look like in whichever company that you were doing out there, in whichever industry that you're just selling or not selling, but you're creating more value for customers in innovation. It's not about how can we, just pull more money out. That's the outcome of providing more value and really wanting to give the best that you can to your customer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also the first thing I noted down was create a sticky product, right? Something that sticks to customers. So once you have them in the loop, you want to have a product that's so good that it sticks to them. They become the advocates. And I remember that early in your journey that a lot of the friends and family actually became advocates, not because we wanted to just help you, but because we actually were like, this is actually a good product. So on top of just being your friends, we also wanted to help you. And then you said one really, really good thing that a lot of entrepreneurs need to learn. Ask them if they want to buy. You have to make that ask.
Yeah.
Because if it's a no, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, don't go easy on this
Call to
feedback
action.
process in the beginning, you know. Like really have the courage to ask the tough questions.
Yeah.
So you get this incredible, valuable feedback as early as possible. Because, you know, if you run out of money, it's game over.
Yeah.
So, you know, you wanna start as good as possible.
Exactly. And then another thing that's also super, super important is having that clear value proposition. Having something that you can explain to a 30-year-old what you do. We see a lot of founders, there's this detail and this feature and this, but you, after 10 minutes talking to them, you still don't know what's the core business. Like, how do you make money? I think that was just something that I took with me.
It's a super interesting point because as a company, you will have a tendency, especially when you're very focused on products like we are, you will have a tendency to want to talk about all the smart features that's in the product. But at the end of the day, the consumer just care about what does it do for me.
Yeah.
It's comfortable, it looks good, it's super high quality. That's all I need to know.
Exactly. Keeping it short, keeping it crisp. And then you also just had like, in the beginning, sometimes you just gotta hustle.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
just gotta do what it takes. And I hope Casper doesn't have PTSD from pressing those shipping labels too much.
I think he got over it, but it took some time.
Yeah. And then the last thing I had here, it was just ask friends for help. I've seen that in myself. I've been way too bad at asking for help. And you guys, you had some amazing friends, but you actually also picked up the phone and called those friends. And you have multiple of the friends from back in the day actually working for you now. Yep. So I think that's a really, really important thing to actually make that ask to your friends, and they will help you. But if you don't ask, they don't know that you need help.
100%.
Christoffer, thanks for an amazing talk, talking us through the journey and taking us down memory lane of some of the good old days at the Shaping New Tomorrow time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was super interesting.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we wish you all the best and can't wait to follow your journey into the future.
Yeah, I wish you the best too.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Growing Forward podcast.